He was short $20 at pump 7, so I covered it. I figured I was buying him a warm night and buying myself a little good karma. I didn't know my Dashcam mic had already picked up the clerk whispering about splitting refunds. 48 hours later, a credit card fraud team emailed me asking for the footage. A small favor at a cold pump had a bigger shadow than I could see from the nozzle. Drivers, in the comments below, tell me where you're watching from. It was just past midnight when I rolled into the station. The lot was quiet but never empty. Trucks idling low, salt blooming white across the blacktop, coffee inside tasting like it lost a bet with the burner. The pumps were numbered clean across the island. I took pump 7, same one I always grab because the hose swings wide and the curb lip doesn't chew your ankles. The receipt would later print $286.47, diesel and a cup of coffee. Nothing fancy, nothing odd. A silver sedan drifted through once, slow, then again a little slower. The plate was smudged with road grit but readable if you're the kind of person who reads plates the way some folks read faces. My camera reads both, light for the lens, audio for the mic, so I let it do its job while I did mine. He came up from the far side in a jacket that had seen more parking lots than winters. Late 20s, eyes that looked through you when he talked. "Brother, I'm short 20, he said, palm open, trying to make his smile look like it didn't need help. I've been that kind of short before. Not proud, practical. I tapped my card, added $20 to his pump, and told him to get home warm. He said, "God bless," and the way he said it sounded like maybe he meant me and maybe he meant the next guy. I didn't realize I'd just stepped into somebody else's math, and their math counted on people like me. Inside, I paid for my own fuel and grabbed the coffee. That's when the clerk's voice dropped to a whisper. He wasn't talking to me. He was talking to the second register like it had ears. "We split refunds at close," he murmured. Drawer slid, card reader chirped, paper rolled, and the friend leaning on the end cap laughed the kind of laugh people practice when they want it to sound like nothing's happening. My Dashcam mic, which stays hot when the cab doors open, caught every syllable through the gap. If you've worked enough counters, you know when nothing is happening. It doesn't laugh. Back at the truck, I sipped the coffee and watched the silver sedan trace another slow circle like a shark, lazy with full teeth. He wasn't looking for people. He was looking for pockets. He pulled to the far corner, headlights off, tail lights pulsing once like a signal. The kid I'd topped up slid into the passenger seat, then climbed out 2 minutes later pretending to tie a shoe. I've seen too many dances to call that one ballet. I repeated the plate under my breath and thumbed the toggle that drops a marker on the clip. The clerk handed me the receipt, pump 7, $286.47, paper curling in the cold. "Refunds don't show if you close clean," he said to his friend, and to no one. That's like saying footprints don't show if you walk on air. Maybe true for ghosts, never true for men. I rolled out. Rolling is how you stay out of other people's gravity wells, or it's how you orbit them without noticing. 2 mornings later, my phone pinged with a message that started like a robocall and ended like a subpoena. A card fraud team from the chain's corporate office said a bank had flagged a cluster of chargebacks tied to this station. Mostly after midnight, mostly at pump 7 and the 2 to the right of it. "Does your Dashcam record inside audio when your doors open?" they asked. I wrote back that cold nights make long door swings, and yes, my mic hears what the door hears. They asked for 10 minutes. They took 30. Every one of those minutes tightened the picture. They didn't say Skimmer yet. They asked if I'd noticed a taped-over slot on the reader, if anyone lingered at close, if a silver sedan kept lapping the lot without fueling. I said yes to all 3. They said, "We've got 24 disputes in a week, $20, $40, $60, always near midnight. Someone runs refunds at end of shift. Skimmers like small bites. Small bites pass under the audit lights. The trouble with small bites is they add up if you're the one they nibble." I sent them the clip. You can hear the clerk explain in a tone that belonged to habit, not adrenaline, how to split refunds, when to clear the batch. when the drawer chirps without a customer in front of it. You can hear the kid I helped say, "God bless," and the clerk answer, "Tell him to come back tomorrow if he wants that 20 back. We refund cash when the system hiccups." Systems hiccup. Men plan. The difference has a smell. They asked me to read my receipt total down to the penny and the exact minute. I read $286.47 and the time. Then I asked the question they'd already cornered. "You think that Sedan is the runner?" The analyst didn't say yes. He said, "Do you have the plate?" I did. I sent it. He said, "We'll handle the rest." The way people say it, when the rest includes jackets with badges and morning meetings that end with signatures. The next 24 hours delivered stories that tasted the same. A field tech on his first job woke to $60 gone, the kind of number that doesn't sink a ship but swamps your morning. A woman driving to the hospital to see her mum found 3 charges that weren't hers and a hold on the card she needed for parking. A young couple on a road trip watched their prepay evaporate after half a tank. The clerk said the machine hiccuped and refunded it. It didn't. Nobody had time to fight. That's how small cons plan harvests. They steal the hours you'd need to make the field look like a field. I went back the following night for a second coffee because counters tell the truth in ways phones don't. The slot at pump 7 had a strip of clear tape that didn't match any fix I've ever seen, holding permission, not plastic. The silver sedan did its circle later and slower, as if the weather were telling it to be polite. The passenger leaned in the doorway, smiling at the clerk the way you smile at a safe you know the combination to. People who aren't afraid of cameras either don't see them or think they own them. Mine looked back from the window glass, and I thumbed the mic gain 1 notch, just in case the night tried to whisper again. "We'll split refunds after close," the clerk said, same cadence as yesterday, like the sentence had a punch clock. The runner asked if the tape would be short. The clerk said no. Refunds don't hit the tape if you clear the batch first. He wasn't wrong about the tape. He was wrong about the person listening. Batches clear, clips don't. I took the cup to the cab and made a neat timeline in the Notes app. My pump 7 transaction at $286.47. The kid's $20 top-up. The whisper about splitting refunds. The sedan's lapse. The taped reader slot. The runner's question. The clerk's answer. Men think stories save them. Numbers do. I sent the timeline and the plate to the analyst. He replied, "If you're around tonight, park across the street and let your mic do what it does. We'll have a field investigator nearby. Don't engage. Let us call it." I don't love sitting still while a man steals in plain sight. But sometimes the most useful thing a driver like me can do is be boring with the camera pointed the right way. So I tucked the tractor under the dead bulb, where the store camera wouldn't blast glare across my windshield. The sedan slid in and pretended not to notice me. It stopped at the end pump, then moved to 7, then back, like someone testing a door that was supposed to stay unlocked. The passenger got out, shook the handle, stared at the slot like he could hear it breathe, then walked inside empty-handed. The clerk vanished twice for the same shelf that didn't need stocking. Each time, the closed light on the reader blinked and reset without a sale. Some symphonies only sound like music to the people who paid for the tickets. Half an hour before midnight, a couple with a sleeping child fueled and left. 15 minutes after, a local with a rust-bitten pickup prepaid $40 and came back squinting because the pump stopped at $23 and the screen said, "Transaction complete." The clerk told him it was a communication error and to check your bank in the morning. And that's a sentence that waits until your anger turns into laundry. The local shook his head, pocketed the receipt and left. My mic kept the words he wished he'd said. I texted the analyst. Same script, same people, same pump. He replied, "Investigator is watching the drawer at close." The clerk flipped the sign to cash only, which is a funny kind of closing, and ran the daily. The runner slipped in through the wrong door, employees only, right past the authorized personnel sticker. The clerk's hands moved like a quiet piano, till tap button printer refund to a card no one swiped in front of him. If you've worked a register, you know the difference between a legitimate return and a harvest. One looks like paperwork, the other looks like lunch. I kept my seat because that's where my job ends and somebody else's begins. Through the glass, I saw the clear tape come off the faceplate and the small overlay slide free, the kind that turns a card slot into a mouth. Under the counter sat a box with the real instructions nobody reads. The clerk didn't look at any of that. He looked at the runner like a student looking at a teacher who made him money. Time to learn whose class this was. They didn't storm in. They poured instead. 2 men in plain jackets and a woman with a clipboard that already knew more than the room did. No raised voices. One said the clerk's name the way people say it when they learned it from a file. The other asked who had access to Pump 7's terminal. The clerk said, "We're closed." The investigator said, "You are now." The runner reached for the wrong decision and found a hand on his sleeve that made it the last wrong decision he'd make that night. I stayed still, listening to my own idle and the way the lot goes quiet when a room learns the word evidence. The field investigator popped the overlay into a bag and peeled the tape off the plate. He took photos of the terminal ID, the receipt roll, the key sequence the clerk had been using like a cheat code. He scanned the batch and found refunds to cards no one had ever carried through that door. Then he matched those minutes to the Sedan's lapse and the clerk's whispers. If you've ever watched a spreadsheet grow a face, that was it. Morning found the chain, sending a memo to managers within 50 miles. Check for tampered readers, audit end-of-day refunds, no credits without a customer at the counter. They didn't mention Pump 7. They didn't have to. Every station has a 7 if you aren't looking. The number isn't cursed. The habit is. The analyst called and asked me to read my notes back exactly, minute by minute, dollar by dollar. Files are like friends. They show up better when you introduce them to each other. By noon, a few folks had their holds lifted. A few got reversals so fast they felt like apologies. The clerk rode in a back seat that wasn't the Sedan's. The runner learned that just giving rides doesn't explain lapse at midnight when a pump's tape keeps saying the word refund. He had a lot to say until the mic had more. Voices are fingerprints. His matched the whisper that taught me to listen in the first place. I came back the next day under sun that made the salt sparkle like nothing had ever been wrong. A new face stood behind the counter. The overlay was gone. The slot felt like a machine again, not a mouth. Someone taped a small sign near the reader. If a refund is needed, we'll do it together while you're here. That's theatre, sure. But sometimes theatre teaches the audience better than the actors remember. I fueled at Pump 7 out of spite for ghosts. The paper printed $264.90. The coffee tasted like coffee. No one whispered anything worth printing. Even so, I couldn't shake the thought that a small kindness sits too close to a small con on certain nights. You lean toward good, and somebody tries to lean your good into their pocket. That can turn a person mean. I won't be that person. I'll be careful, and I'll keep my receipts, and I'll listen when a whisper calls itself a policy. But I won't stop at Pump 7 when someone needs to get home warm. I'll just keep my door open long enough for the mic to remember what my eyes might miss, and I'll keep my phone on for the email that says, "We need your clip." Because a day later, that email arrived again, shorter this time, sharper, and with 3 letters that tell you the next step won't be a phone call, it'll be a visit. And the visit would prove whether we were dealing with a clerk who got greedy or a chain of hands that knew exactly how much money small nights can print when the drawer learns to tell stories. The email that landed the next day wasn't a question, it was a meeting time. "We'll be on site tonight," the analyst wrote. "If you fuel in the area, we'd appreciate eyes from across the street. Keep distance, let the process run." Process is a polite word for what happens when spreadsheets grow badges. I topped off early, parked where my windshield could see the door, and let the clock earn its keep. The silver sedan arrived like it had a shift. Same pass, Same pause, same angle to the counter. Routine always believes it's invisible until routine meets paper. Just after 11, a different car slid in. Older, clean, forgettable on purpose. A man and a woman stepped out wearing clothes that looked like grocery runs and vocabulary that smells like affidavits. They walked the lot, bought 2 waters and left. 10 minutes later they returned, fueled a rental at pump 7 and chatted about nothing while the nozzle clicked. When the woman went inside to refund a made-up billing error, the clerk tried to perform the magic trick he'd practiced, a refund to a card she never handed him, followed by a batch clear. Magic hates mirrors. She had one in her pocket and a witness in my dash. The field investigator texted, "We have it from both sides." He didn't tell me to leave, he told me to sit still. Sitting still is harder than snow driving if you grew up fixing your own problems. I watched the runner arrive late, with a swagger that thought it was a disguise. He didn't fuel. He didn't even pretend. He leaned on the counter and said low, "We good?" The clerk said, "We're good if we're quick." People who are innocent don't talk like clocks. At midnight, the sign flipped to cash only, and the backroom door opened a few inches, even though nobody needed the mop. 2 plain jackets stepped in like they were coming home. The woman from the rental stood beside them now, with her badge showing, not saying a word. The man addressed the clerk by name and asked for access to Pump 7's terminal and the last 6 nights of end-of-day refunds. The runner tried to make himself smaller, then bigger, then sideways, the 3 stages of men who don't know what shape the truth takes. There's no right shape. There's only through. No voices rose. The questions arrived with dates. The answers arrived with gaps. They peeled the clear tape and popped the overlay like a loose crown. They photographed the glue pattern and the reader mouth underneath. They printed the batch and circled refunds that didn't marry to a customer, to a card present, to any hand at that counter. And then they played the little piece of audio that closes a chapter, the clerk's own voice, soft as dust. "We split refunds at close." He didn't argue with the sound. He argued with the idea of being the kind of man who makes that sound. The one argument mattered, the other one never does. Outside, the silver sedan tried to leave and learned the lot had more than one exit but fewer than he needed. They didn't cuff him there. They made a phone call and 2 cars that had been doing loops of their own met him at the light. A calm person asked if he could step out. Calm is a terrible thing to argue with. He showed them an empty wallet and a full phone. The phone showed laps. The laps showed times. The times shook hands with refunds. That circle didn't close because anybody yelled. It closed because numbers do what they do when you stop lying to them. They paused the store for the night. A regional manager materialized at 2 in the morning with hair that belonged to a different hour. She signed forms, then watched the corporate fraud team empty a drawer that thought it was smarter than a camera. They took custody of the overlay, sealed it, catalogued it, and showed the manager how a taped slot catches the cards of people who never knew they handed their lives to plastic. The manager looked like someone trying to forgive a decision she didn't make. I didn't envy her. Cleaning is harder than catching. By sunrise, the chain had an action plan with bullet points nobody loves until the day they need them. 1. No refunds without the customer at the counter and the card in hand. 2. Visual checks of reader mouths at shift start, middle and close. 3. Audit end-of-day batches for orphaned credits. 4. Any tape on a slot is treated like a fire alarm. 5. If the same car makes laps without fuel, call once. If it returns, call twice. 6. When in doubt, reset the whole terminal and pull a supervisor who knows what integrity means beyond a poster. The analyst called me that afternoon and walked his notes against mine. We aligned minute by minute until our stories became a single spine. He said the clerk had admitted to a few favors, the kind of phrase men use when they're trying on the smallest version of the truth. He said the runner had tried to separate himself, calling himself a ride-share friend, the kind of sentence that lives in air quotes. He said the point-of-sale logs would do the hard work, while the rest of them filled in the rest of it with shoe leather and a printer. 2 days later, I sat in a bland conference room that smelled like dry erase ink. The chain's people brought coffee that knew its job. Keep hands busy while mouths talk. A bank rep dialed in from a city far enough away that winter was just a word. The field investigator played the audio of the whisper, the status pings from the terminal, the telltale cadence of a drawer that opens when no customer breathes on the counter. When my Dashcam's clip hit the speaker and the phrase "split refunds" came through twice, the bank rep breathed out the way someone does when a number stops being a theory. They asked me to read my receipt into the record, pump 7, 286 47, timestamp 12:08. They matched it to the moment the runner strolled in, the moment the plate circled the lot, the 2 minutes the clerk left the counter to straighten the shelf that hadn't moved since spring. They didn't need me to narrate the meaning. They just needed me to confirm the nouns: pump, amount, time, voice. Nouns carry the weight. Verbs follow. A second set of victims got their money back during that hour. Little amounts, all of them important to the person who didn't have them last week. The bank rep promised to remove holds faster going forward when flagged by partner evidence. That's bureaucracy's way of saying when a camera and a calendar agree. The regional manager asked if they could use my clip in training, and I told her she could if it meant some other Pump 7 would stay a place to buy fuel, not a place where people buy stories. She nodded like someone who's done apologizing and is ready to build something that doesn't need one. As for the kid I topped up, the runner wasn't the only person in his orbit. That kind of orbit never has just one moon. A week later, the kid found me in the lot, shoulders hunched into a jacket that had learned more than it deserved. "I'm sorry," he said. Not to me, just to the air. He said he'd cut me in if I brought him folks who'd come back. I told him a man's best money is never a percentage of somebody else's lie. He looked at the ground like it owed him an explanation. I told him where to go for a fuel voucher when weeks run long. A non-profit 2 towns over that buys gas for families the way slow angels buy time. I drove him there because sometimes pointing isn't enough. We filled out a form neither of us loved, but both of us respected. He left with a gift card that will only swipe where it should. I left with that quiet inside you get when the day pays off in something you can't fold or count. Before he stepped out, I bought him a pair of gloves that could bully the wind and told him the trick I learned the hard way. If someone teaches you a shortcut, check who it cuts. He nodded like he might keep the sentence for a day when he'd rather forget it. That's all you can ask from people who still have time to turn. The clerk took a deal that turns cash into community service and the future into a spreadsheet he'll be answering to for a while. The runner discovered that just giving rides has edges when a phone says otherwise. The chain replaced the terminal and started printing signs that tell customers how refunds work so a whisper can't borrow the word. A few lanes over, an old man paid with exact change and told the new cashier she had a nice smile. Normal returned with all the fanfare of a light bulb. I went back to Pump 7 after the dust settled, because closure is a thing you sometimes owe a place as much as a person. The slot was clean, the faceplate flush, the sticker straight, the receipt printed sharp black like it had something to prove. I folded it the way I always do, top third to the back, bottom to the front, and slid it into the pocket where I keep the days that might get questioned. Nobody asked me for it. That's not why you keep receipts. You keep them because memory turns weather into fog and paperwork into storms. The camera doesn't. It just remembers what you saw once and might need to see clean again. The analyst texted me on my way out. "Training team loved your audio. Split refunds is our new red flag." He attached a screenshot of a slide with bullet points that didn't know how to brag. Overlay detection, reader inspection, batch audit, no refunds without customer present. It wasn't poetry. It was plumbing. Plumbing keeps the floor dry so you don't mistake swamp for shine. I still think about the 20 I gave that first night. People ask if I'd do it again. I would. I'll just do it smarter. I'll keep the door open long enough for the mic to listen. I'll count the lap of the car that should have left 2 coffees ago. I'll say the pump number out loud to myself and tuck the receipt before I even reach for the cup. Kindness doesn't make you easy to rob if you carry proof. It just makes you the wrong person to practice on. If you rode with me to the end of this one, tell me in the comments below where you're watching from, city, state, or the mile marker that raised you. And if you want more nights where receipts beat rumors and small kindness burns through small grifts, subscribe so the next run finds you. Next time, I'll tell you about a tow lot that tried to invent a title jump fee in a hailstorm and how 4 screws and 1 phone call made the story pay the right person.